Hello, it is Friday the 13th of June, and gosh, for my entire life I think we've been at war in the Middle East, and here we are again. I don't think this is going to be over very quickly. This is not about nuclear weapons, this is about regime change. The war in Iraq, we were told, was about nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction, and it was just a lie to get us into it. It's about regime change, just the same as it was with Gaddafi in Libya. In 2003, he gave up all of his weapons of mass destruction, and that wasn't what they wanted. They wanted regime change, and so 8 years later, he was dead, and they got what they wanted. So this is what is going on in Iran now, and I don't think it will be over immediately, which makes it a little bit of a risk because we've seen some quite nasty sell-offs in crypto, which you would think would be unrelated to war in the Middle East, but sometimes you sell what you can, not what you want to. Gold, obviously, and oil are up hugely on it, and it's disappointing that Bitcoin is not doing better, but it is what it is. So let's take a look at where we are at. In Bitcoin, let's start with the daily chart. Here we are really in a pretty nasty sideways range. We've pulled back though to the daily 50 moving average, which previously when we tested it at the last Thursday was pretty good support, and is really cool support and resistance for Bitcoin. We can see previously in daily moves. If we, this was, everyone was getting very excited about this being new. Alt season was here. Everything was going up until this happened. And obviously this week we've had a really nasty sell-off. This happened, ahead. This isn't just about Iran. And so I would say the reason I've got a pink support zone here is for a number of reasons. When you're in an uptrend, the previous swing low is always really important support, and that's where we pull back to, and so this is support for that reason. And also, if I put my fib retrace levels from this low in April, where we bottomed, to here, you can see this is also the 236 fib retrace level, which for me is really important trend support. Now, some people will say, well, look, the daily closed underneath it last week. What about that? But if we look at this and take a bigger picture view here on the weekly, you can see that every time we've dipped into this zone on this 103, 100 level, this 236 fib, for the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've found buyers and held it. So really this is still, unfortunately, a pretty scary and unpleasant sideways range. We tend to do it quite a lot. Does it mean we're going to keep going higher here? If we zoom out here at what Bitcoin tends to do, when we top out, we do go into a sideways range. If we break the lows of it, we will see a bigger pullback. And because this is starting to look a little bit double toppy, I think that we will see a bigger pullback, like a 3-wave correction here. So where we drop down to, if we get underneath and close underneath 103 and continue, we will have a relationship to this first swing. So we'll measure this as our first swing and project it from here. And this will be a bigger 3-wave correction, which unfortunately gives us a bit of a target here of 90,300, which is where this swing would be 61.8 of this first swing. And if we do the equal measured move, obviously we go back to the bottom of this range. So we can say that a close and holding underneath 103 possibly brings us back to 90. That's quite a big drop. While Bitcoin goes sideways though, not everything. So 103 and 90 are the big levels I'm watching in Bitcoin. Not everything. When Bitcoin goes sideways, not everything goes down though. And one thing that I've noticed really interesting about the last 24 hours is the ETF. The ETF flows in have just flipped. ETH flows in the last 24 hours have been 240 million versus 164 million in Bitcoin. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens when these ETF opens in US trading today. Are we going to see a liquidation and people getting out? Because we have seen a pretty nasty move in ETH. I actually much prefer buying ETH on dips to Bitcoin at the moment. I think the risk reward is higher. If I look at ETH US dollar, let's go to the weekly in this one. I think that we have potentially done a big three-wave correction here. And if we can break out of this chop zone around 2,500, where we are with these weekly moving averages, and again, 5 weeks of trapped sideways in this range, I think that we've got really nice upside. First upside target for me here is 3,300 and then 4,600. But for now, we are unfortunately trapped sideways in a pretty scary range. So I'm watching to see what happens on the open and in US trading with these ETFs. Are they all going to get straight out again, or are they going to buy more and keep buying the dip? On the daily, then, we're still in the ETH, still stuck in this sideways range, looking for a touch of the bottom or a bullish reversal pattern. And I am just a little bit nervous because I'm not sure that this stress that we're under at the moment is going to be over in a hurry, unfortunately. I wish it would be. Let's take a look at some other important ones, and one of them is Solana. If I go to the weekly pattern here in Solana, we go all the way back to the all-time lows in this chart here in December 2022 and to the highs that we made beginning of this year. We're doing that golden ratio zone thing. So in the middle here, between the 61.8 and the 38.2, which is basically between 117 and 185, we're going sideways. Quite often though, the 50% level, the midpoint of all-time lows to all-time highs, is quite a pivot point. And we said if we got underneath it, we are potentially headed back to the bottom of this range. So 151 for me becomes really key. That's what we need to get back above if we are finished with this and on our way back to the top of this range. And if we get stuck underneath 151, and you can see if we look left how important this support and resistance level has been, then I think that we are going to see another swing higher. Remember, the weekly close of this 151 is the important level. And if we look from the high that we made at the end of May, this is really 5 waves down. And I would expect this to do 3 waves higher from here. So this is 1, 2, 3. So I'm watching to see if this will double bottom. We could also argue that this is the previous swing low before we made a major high. And so around this kind of 144, 145, 140 area, potentially could find support today for a bounce. And I think the longer there is without a major Iranian retaliation, that's what we could see. So in Solana, yes, previous swing low, also the lows from beginning of May, we could see another bounce here. If you are in this one, what I would say is if we watch out for resistance at 151, if we roll over, we're likely to continue lower from there. If we can recover that 151 level, we are headed back to 185, and then you can decide what do you want to do there. So that's where we are with Solana. One thing I'm noticing at the moment is market participants seem to keep buying strength, so not everything looks amazing. Let's look at what is doing well and what is not. One that I was quite excited about here was INJ. I thought that this was a really important support zone here at 11.5, and we broke above it. We came back and back tested it. It was this previous swing low. Here we are back at this level. Now, some people will argue that this is like a head and shoulders pattern. It looks pretty symmetrical. It could be. Clearly this is then a very important support zone. If we get underneath it, we're at risk, of another bigger pullback to these swing lows. But really, just like so many markets, this is sideways trading, 5 weeks of scary sideways up and down, and here we are back at the bottom of the range. And so when you are at the bottom, when you're in a sideways range like this, the easy trade is to buy the bottom of the range and sell the top of the range until we break out. And so I'm watching this on lower time frames, like a 15-minute, see what we do here, and if we can indeed make a base and flip this. Important support in INJ. Tau, bit tensor was another one that I was getting quite excited about, thinking perhaps that we could see another swing higher from here. Let me find bit tensor. Here we go. I was looking at this as a very nice three-wave correction and looking for kind of I was drawing this as a channel, looking to see if we could break out from this channel, and we haven't. We are stuck in this channel. I actually think that this one is not a buy here, and here's the reason. I'm going to take this channel away. We are all bunched up with the moving averages here. But the problem is, if I draw my fib retraces from the high we made in December 2024 to this low in April, we reversed at a 50% level, and mean reverting markets tend to keep mean reverting, which would mean after reversing at a 50% retrace level, you would expect it to drop to 50% the other way, which would bring us back to these lows, these previous swing lows, and 50% from this low to high. Let's take all of the other noise off so you can see it clearly. A 50% retrace means bit tensor has a little bit further to fall to 328, and only kind of if we find support at these previous lows and break this high am I going to get excited about buying this back in. So I think that bit tensor has a little bit further to fall to 328. Let's take a look at Fartcoin, because that's one of the ones that had a lot of strength, and let's go up to the daily. Well, what the last couple of days have shown us in Fartcoin is unfortunately a lower high after a really lovely, bull run from the bottom that we made in March. And as you know, corrections are normally 3 waves, so there is a little bit of a risk here in Fartcoin that we're not done back underneath these daily moving averages. We're not back at these lows yet, and again, if we do fib retrace levels from these lows, we've had a pretty nice bounce from this 50%. One of the things that happens when you do that 50% is we've expanded, so this kind of rule is not working, because we got above the 50% here in the middle, and we've kind of broken out and just become more volatile. So where are we likely to be looking for? I think that a retest of the lows here and this saying hi to the daily 200 moving average is more likely, and if we overshoot, we're more likely to see a 3-wave measured move in Fartcoin. So if we measure from this high to low, project from here, where this swing would be 61.8 of this swing is here at 104, and if that 104 level doesn't hold, then we are likely to continue lower to 0.74 in Fartcoin. So again, this is another one that I would not be messing with, and yes, unless I saw either a really good lower time frame bottoming pattern, or I saw a bounce back that got me back above this daily 50 moving average. Whilst we are underneath it, I'm really not interested in Fartcoin on the long side. So let's talk about some that have been doing really well. Let's talk about useless. Now, this is really just a bit like Bitcoin, isn't it? Here we are sideways at previous highs from the middle of May. This is a daily chart of useless. Looks like we've made a very nice 5-wave swing, and we've pulled back to these previous swing lows. This is turning into quite a bullish candle. I would remind you though that this, and it looks like a textbook 3-wave equal measured move. So we can say that in useless we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up, 3 waves back, pull back to this previous swing low. There is really quite a lot to like about this. It's not any sign of a top, or this is quite bullish corrective price action, if you like. If I measure from this high to this low like this, it's not working. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. You can see this was an equal measured move. 1, 2, 3. One of the rules I have using these fib measured moves is when you do this, if you get above this 61.8 level on a back test, remember fibs are like a ladder, you kind of back test each rung if you're going to keep going down. So closing and holding above 0.045, which is a back test of the 61.8 level, will then send us back to the top of this channel next, and likely next swing higher. So if we can say that if we can close and hold above 0.0425, we're going to test the top of this channel. Watch out for a false breakout here, but breaking out of this channel would say next leg higher for useless coin. That's what I'm looking for in this. So important levels to watch, and that would mean that our trend continues in this one. So let's take a look at some more that are outperforming. Markets seem to be buying strength. One of them that didn't get too badly beaten up and is going sideways in the middle here is KTA. I have to say, let's put regular candles on. I am with this one a little bit more cautious, and the reason is that if this is the first swing lower and this is a B leg and this is a third swing of correction that we are in, I want to make sure first of all, whilst we're going sideways in the middle here, that if I measure from this high to low, don't know why that's not 1, 2, 3, we are bouncing from this 61.8 level, and here we are in the middle. This is, if we zoom out, holding up pretty well. Potentially we have done our 5 waves up, 3 waves back, and we are on our way up again. So we're just starting to get a little green here back in the middle, but we are consolidating. So if you wanted to buy a little bit of this one, I put Heikenhashi on because it's so gappy. We can say that our first breakout sign, if this is a consolidation, is the break of these highs. Some people will draw this as the trend line and say watch out here, but holding above 1.62 would be pretty bullish, and potentially this whole correction over in KTA as well. Floki was another one that I thought was had made a very nice, from the lows in the beginning of April, 5 waves up, 3 waves back. So I'm watching to see if this one is going to double bottom here. It's in that, again, another one in that 61.8, 38T golden ratio zone going sideways here in the middle. And this is exactly where we've had trouble before. One thing about this though is quite often you, if you lose the 61.8, the 786, if we drop down into that level, we could start talking about this being a bullish Gartley pattern. But for now, I kind of think that this may important support in Floki, and I'm watching it. So 75.34 Floki US dollar, just because I kind of like this bigger pattern, and I would like to see this correction, some sign that this correction is over. So key resistance, if you buy this double bottom here, is this pivot level, this 50% level through the middle at 84.58. Above it, we're on our way to the top of this channel, and breaking out from this channel, we are setting up to retest the highs and the daily 200 moving average up here at 11,709 in Floki. So the two charts that I've really liked in this sell-off have been decentralized exchange charts, Hyperliquid and Saros, which is a Solana wallet and payment app, and they have done really, really well. And again, markets, I see markets keep buying strength. And what I'm impressed about is here you can see in Hyperliquid from the first swing in December 2024, when we got above it, we pulled back into these levels, kept going higher. Here we keep making new highs, and this is quite bullish price action here on the daily chart when we look at it against the high that we made at the end of May. So how about on lower time frames? Are we looking at a pretty nice sort of 3-wave measured move potentially? So again, back above, I think, this swing low here, back above 40, I would expect these highs to be retested and potentially next swing higher in hyperliquid. Remember, we're in an uptrend. We've pulled back to important 4-hour moving averages. This would be a very nice 3-wave correction. There's quite a lot to like about this. First target would be a retest of 42.46, which is this fib extension level. And if I go to the daily, I've drawn this by from the high in December to the low that we made in April. And these fib extensions are working really well. So a retest of 42.46 would be the first target. And if we can hold above 42.46, next outside target is 51. Saros is another decentralized exchange. Remember, these make money unlike quite a lot of the other apps. And we're seeing the same thing. And this is a much bigger, if I zoom out, these are fib projection levels from the high in January 2024 to the low that we made in October. You can see that they're working really well. The ones I like to use are 1.618, 2.618, 4.236 for targets. And if we go beyond that, 6.854. And no doubt about it, these are working really nicely. And again, quite often when you retest previous highs, you quite often fail, or you'll see profit taking because people didn't like the drop before. And when you break out above it, if it's for real, you tend to keep going. So far, this one's doing really nicely. For the last 5 days, we made a new high and we are trading pretty sideways, in a choppy sideways range, just like every other market this week. This is another one where if I look at it on lower time frames, I would argue on this 4-hour, this is again a very nice 3-wave correction, potentially back to moving averages. If we are going to go higher, I would argue a retest of this would be a first target, and a breakout here would be 0.255 for Saros. So everything, I think, whilst it's pretty scary out there, not everything is in a downtrend. A lot of these are making really nice corrective patterns back to important support. Clearly, in Bitcoin and ETH and some of these others, if the important support doesn't hold, we're likely to see a bigger, longer lasting correction. But I'm not completely gloomy next. And remember, every time one bubble bursts or every time one bull run ends, it's time to just go and look for the next one. And at least in this market, there is always another one. Good luck.